I used to be a geography teacher, teaching at a high school near to Oxford, and I taught geography for 2 years. And after I'd been teaching geography for 2 years, I decided I wanted to go and learn some more geography. And the best way to learn geography, I decided, would be to go and explore the world. And I thought the best way for me to explore the world would be to travel across quite a lot of it on my bicycle. But rather than starting from England and kind of pedalling off into the world, I thought it would be more fun if I started as far away from home as possible and then tried to ride the bike back to England. So basically, to cut a long story short, I looked at my atlas, I picked a point as far away from home as I could think of, and then I bought myself a one-way plane ticket to the eastern edge of Siberia, and then I got on the plane, flew to eastern Siberia with my bicycle, then I got off the plane and I started pedaling, and eventually it took me just over 3 years to get back home again. I went through 28 countries, about 30,000 miles, and I arrived home about 2 years ago now. So I've been back a little while now, living in London. But tonight I'm going to take you fairly quickly through those 3 years. But there were some people in the towns, in some of the towns, and the Russian people we met in the towns were incredibly friendly, and they would welcome us to Russia and welcome us to Siberia, and they said, "Welcome to Russia, welcome to Siberia. It's wonderful to have English people here visiting us on your bicycles. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome." But why have you come in September? Because in 1 month, in October, the Siberian winter is going to arrive, and the Siberian winter is very, very, very cold. And we're sorry to say this to you, but if you keep going down this road, we're sorry to say this to you, but we think if you keep going down this road on your own, on your bicycles, within a month, we think almost definitely you are going to die. Again, I think this is something I really learned on Southwestern, a healthy sense of the absurd, and just being able to find the positive side, to find something to laugh about, even when you're pretty miserable. And it was, at times, very miserable, very hard. And one of the hardest things I've ever done, I think, cycling through Siberia in the winter, but also one of the best things I've ever done. And it's an amazing memory I have now of those months in the ice and the cold. And after 3 months, finally, following that road at the top there, we made it down to the coast and were able to catch a ferry across to Japan. And that's me on the ferry on the left-hand side. I was so happy to still be alive, very thankful to now be on the ferry to Japan. And I thought, brilliant, we're going to Japan. Finally, I'll escape from all of this awful winter weather. But this was Japan when I arrived. Continued onwards until I got to Hong Kong, and from Hong Kong, I had a new kind of problem to solve, and that was that now I'd decided to go on a detour down to Australia, but as you know, Australia's an island. It was surrounded by sea. I couldn't ride my bike across the sea. Normally, to cross the sea, I was catching a ferry, but there are no ferries going from Hong Kong to Australia. Australia was 3,000 miles across the sea. There aren't any ferries going to Australia, full stop. So I couldn't catch a ferry to go there. Most people going to Australia fly in a plane. But I didn't want to fly in a plane because it just felt a bit like cheating suddenly in the middle of my journey to jump on a plane and fly to the next country. It was far too easy. I was having an adventure. I was exploring. I couldn't fly. So I thought, I can't fly, can't catch a ferry. How on earth can I get to Australia? So I put my good Southwestern problem-solving hat on, and you can see, hopefully you know where Hong Kong is, and there's Australia down at the bottom. Hong Kong is sort of the southern part of China where my road reaches there. And I saw, as I started looking at my map, I saw lots of islands scattered around in the sea, in between Hong Kong and Australia. And I thought, well, there are lots of islands there. I didn't know a lot about them, but I thought even if there are no ferries going to these islands, there must be other sorts of boats. There must be like cargo ships or yachts or fishing boats. Some sort of boats must go between these islands. Maybe I can hitchhike on one of these boats to the first group of islands, and then I'll cycle through there, through the Philippines, catch another boat down to Indonesia, another one across to Papua New Guinea, and then finally I'll get to Australia. Easy. Sighting of the island of New Guinea, very exotic, mysterious-looking island covered in clouds and mountains, and I was really excited to be going to New Guinea, but as I got closer, actually throughout the journey, whenever I got to a big town, on the bicycle or the boat stopped at a port, I would usually look for the local internet cafe. Most big towns in the world now have got an internet cafe, and when I got to a big town, I'd go to the local internet cafe, I'd go on my email. First thing I'd do, I'd send an email home to my mum to tell her I was still alive, and then I would send some emails ahead to places I was about to visit, using kind of as much networking as I could, sort of emailing friends of friends or friends of friends of friends who lived in some of the countries I was going to, asking them for advice about where I was going, and often they would reply. And just before I got to Papua New Guinea, I got this reply from a British guy who lived there, and he said, if you read this, this is a quote from his email, "I should warn you that travel in Papua New Guinea can be quite dangerous. I've been held at gunpoint and robbed 16 times and have been caught in crossfire from warring tribes using M16s and the like. I don't mean to be negative, but I'm sure you'd want to make informed decisions on where you travel." But I did find some new friends. That's John and Tom, and these guys knew the road, so I actually paid them some money to walk with me and show me the path to get through the jungle. And John there is helping me carry my bike. We could no longer ride the bike at all. It was kind of carrying or pushing it the whole time. And the hardest thing, actually, though, at this point, rather than not just the jungles and the mountains, the hardest thing now was the rivers were really flooded. And if you look behind us, that river is no longer a nice, gentle river we could walk through or canoe across. We'd have just been swept away and drowned instantly in that river. So the only way to cross them was to walk across these fallen, slippery tree bridges with the angry river thundering along underneath us. And to be honest, at this point of the journey, I was getting pretty exhausted. I'd been away from home for 1.5 years now. I was feeling very homesick. I was beginning to run out of money a bit. Up here in the mountains, we were going very slowly, getting blocked by the rivers. We were running out of food. I was getting very hungry. I was feeling a bit ill. I actually had a disease called malaria, but I didn't know it at the time. And I was just getting really fed up, and I started to think to myself, why don't I just go back to that last city? I can retrace my steps to the last city. I'll find a plane going to a bigger city, and then I'll fly home to England. I've had enough of this stupid bike ride. That's what I started thinking to myself. But then I thought to myself, I wonder how you'll feel if you fly home to England now. And then I thought to myself, I wonder how you'll feel if you keep going and you get to Australia. And I remembered that great advice from Churchill, never, 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 never give up. So I thought, right, I'm going to keep going and see what happens. And eventually, after about 12 days in those mountains, we stumbled out the other side. And you can see me there. My shirt is ripped, my beard is long, my hair's a mess. I'm dirty, I'm tired, and I'm hungry. But I felt great. I felt so happy, a bit like at the end of a southwestern summer. And effort of networking, which allowed me to do it. And I'd had this thought, if I am going to fail, I am going to have to get a plane. At least I'm going to try talking to everybody I can think of before I catch that plane. Then at least I'll know I tried my hardest. So I started talking to everybody. I went to see the British ambassador. He was very friendly, but he couldn't help me. I went on local Papua New Guinea TV asking people if they can help me with a boat. Nobody could help me. I went to visit all the kind of businesses, and it wasn't getting anywhere. But then eventually I was invited to a tennis party. And the reason I was invited to this tennis party was going way back to Shanghai, which is at the top of this map here. When I was in Shanghai, I'd met a guy called Ed, who had said to me, when you get to Hong Kong, you must meet Angus. He knows about boats. So when I got to Hong Kong, I met this guy called Angus, who worked with boats, and I was looking for a boat from Hong Kong at the time. He said, I can't help you with boats from Hong Kong, but you should meet Julian. He used to live in Papua New Guinea. He can give you advice. So I met Julian. Julian was very friendly, and he said, you should meet the guy who took over my job in Papua New Guinea, Pete. So when I got to Papua New Guinea, I was looking for my boat. I rang up this guy, Pete. And Pete said, unfortunately, I can't get you onto any of the boats, but why don't you come to my tennis party? So I thought, brilliant. And I went to the tennis party. At least I can, you know, play tennis and maybe meet some more people. At the tennis party, I met a guy, I can't remember this guy's name. Anyway, let's call him Pete. And at the tennis party, I met this guy, Pete, and he introduced me to his girlfriend, Felicity. And Felicity said, you should give a talk at the local international school before you leave Papua New Guinea. The kids would love to hear about your adventure. So I said, okay. She gave me the phone number of Helen, who was a teacher at this school. And I rang up Helen. She said, come and give a talk. I gave a talk to the school. At the end of the talk, to 8-year-olds, I said to this classroom of 8-year-olds, by the way, if anybody knows somebody with a boat, can you let me know? And then the next day, Helen, the teacher, rang me up and she said, Ashley, one of the boy, 3rd row back, his uncle has got a luxury dive boat and it's leaving for Australia on Saturday. Do you want to ride? So that's how I eventually found my boat to Australia. And